We got a women's bantamweight matchup as Bia Mesquita comes in at -600. She goes up against Melissa Mullins, who comes in at +450. Now, Mullins is 7-0 in her career, which is crazy considering that she made her pro debut in June of 2024. Prior to that, she was and still is, if I'm not mistaken, the most decorated BJJ specialist on the female side of things. It seems like she was trying to follow the line of Mackenzie Dern and the Talita Alancars, who's the other short one that just won the other week? Actually, that is Talita Alencar. Jacqueline Amarim is another one. Fighters that did very good on the BJJ scene, trying to make the most of that skill by transferring it over to mixed martial arts. And Mesquita wasted no time. Like I said, she made her debut in June 2024, signed with LFA in October, and a full year after signing with LFA, she gets signed to the UFC. Now, I do quickly want to bring your attention to her DQ win over Hope Chase. That was a fight where Mesquita was dominating the majority of that fight with her grappling. She got off on a ton of close submission attempts, and Chase fought through every single one of those. And then it seemed to me, I could be wrong here, but Chase probably had better cardio, and Mesquita was seemingly slowing down considering how much she was squeezing on a lot of those positions. And then Chase finally started to reverse a position, start to get off on some decent success of her own in the second round. And then luckily for Mesquita, she gets hit by an illegal up kick. And to me, it looked like Mesquita was kind of just looking for the door or looking for the exit, and she took it. And luckily for her, they allowed her to get a DQ win rather than a no contest. So it is what it is. I don't want to say that like she was going to go on to lose that fight, but that is kind of the only fight where you see a little bit of struggle from her compared to the rest of her fights where she's pretty much gone out there and dominated her opponents. I know she bled a little bit against, was it Arujo, I believe it was? There was a fight that I was live for that she went up against one of her opponents and she got cut. But for the most part, she's gotten to her grappling, she's gotten the takedowns, she's gotten to the jiu-jitsu, she's gotten the finishes. The Montserrat Rendon fight, that was impressive. We saw her rock Rendon with the first shot she threw, and then from there was able to get to her grappling and quickly found the submission after that. So very impressive stuff from the 35-year-old. She recognizes that if she wants to get UFC gold, she needs to get moving right away. Considering that this is the 135-pound division, she can find herself in a title fight sooner than later if she stays busy and continues to rack up some of these finishes. Now this weekend, she goes up against a British grappler in Melissa Mullins, who last time out came up short against Daria Zelezniakova in a rematch of a fight where she absolutely dominated and finished her, I believe, in the first round back on the Aries FC scene. That's one fight that now I think I've blacklisted Melissa Mullins. It's mind-boggling that a fighter knows that a path to victory that she has over her fighter and chooses not to take it, chooses to go to tougher resistance, and she ends up getting outboxed and outstruck, and obviously ends up losing that fight on the scorecard. So very, very poor performance from Mullins. She's capable of much more than we saw in that Zelezniakova fight. She's a good wrestler, good grappler, good BJJ, solid control, normally showcases decent enough cardio, but game planning, not her smart suit as of late. One more thing, she was actually scheduled to fight back in March against Luana Carolina. Carolina misses weight pretty badly. Carolina ultimately gets cut from the UFC, and Mullins gets rebooked, which kind of sucks, right? You go from fighting a Muay Thai specialist where you probably have a bit of a grappling advantage to now fighting a fighter that is much better at what you do. So let's talk about this fight now between Bia Mesquita and Melissa Mullins. Mesquita -600 makes sense, right? Mullins, I don't know how long she can utilize her grappling defensively to try to keep Mesquita on the feet, but even on the feet, Mullins is nothing special, right? She throws decent volume. There's not a lot of knockout threat there. There's not a lot of knockdown threat there either, and I think Mesquita can really strike with her until that opportunity comes where she can initiate the grappling, the clinch, and I think from there she can eventually find herself in a submission spot, and I think she ends up forcing the tap here over Mullins. So I don't mind the -600, honestly. On Mesquita, if you want to parlay her, go ahead. What I'm going to be looking for more so is the submission prop. I'm sure we're going to get it anywhere between +100 and -150. I'd be fine to shoot, just a unit or so on that to try to get some profit out of this matchup. But I believe at a certain point, Mullins is going to make a mistake. Mesquita is going to get to her grappling. and she ends up getting the tap here over the English fighter. So give me Bia Mesquita by submission.